I still believe that Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 was a series with some great moments, but it certainly fell short in other aspects. I dislike Zark as the final villain, and I found him underwhelming. However, there was something much more threatening and much more interesting along the way, and that was Yuto, a character who for the majority of the series doesn't really get his own identity, and we don't really get to see him much as a standalone character, but rather as a part of Yuya. I think his introduction is among some of the best character introductions in Yu-Gi-Oh! Across every spin-off and the original series. There's this mystery, and you can't wait to find out who this person is. And when we get to see him duel, it's unlike something we've ever seen, and something that suits him extremely well is his ace monster, Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, which is one of my favorite designs for a monster. To put it in simple terms, Yuto was a menace.
You're of no use to me. You wanted to finish the duel, so I'm finishing it.
Yuto is the one that kept Arc V interesting. Even when he becomes one with Yuya, he's still the one that shows up in those emotional moments, the one that makes him give in to his rage. Sometimes they try to stay composed as a team, however, this doesn't always work. Yuto comes from my personal favorite, the Xyz dimension, someone who lost almost everything and doesn't have the same joy in dueling that Yuya does, which does make for an interesting dynamic between the two characters. Yuto can be more cold, subtle, and calculated in comparison to his dimensional counterparts. Yuto possesses the ability to inflict real damage, destruction, and pain in a duel, without the presence of an action field or any other technology or external factors. Him and Yuya both have their moments of anger and rage, but the main source of Yuto's anger is towards Duel Academy. Yuto also wants to protect Lulu, similar to how Yuya wants to protect Zuzu, and through this, Yuto and Yuya come to a sort of mutual understanding, and they want to help each other stay away from these rageful moments, as they both know it isn't good for either of them, or anybody else. I won't go too much into detail because I've made a video about this before, but there is a moment where Yuya and Yuto absolutely lose their mind, and it's my favorite moment in the entirety of Arc V. Yuya and Yuto are fighting off the parasite that is trying to infect their brain. They're both under an immense amount of pressure, and they keep switching control in order to stay composed, but the real trigger for this breakdown is seeing Zuzu being touched by the doctor, and shortly after this happens, they both absolutely go insane, summon Odd-Eye's Raging Dragon, and obliterate their two opponents. But let's talk about this version of Yuya, sometimes referred to as either Berserk or Enraged Yuya. This is a very interesting version of the characters, as he feels like an intimidating presence, threatening and dangerous, and for me was a much more interesting presence than Zark as a whole. These two, when they reached this state, it felt unpredictable, and I think that's what was so enjoyable about these two characters working together. I find Yuto on his own to be a very interesting character, and I do wish we got to see more of him as an individual, because his initial presence of being cold, intimidating, and calculated was merely a result of his trauma, losing his home and the people around him. But what we miss of him as an individual, we see through Yuya, and in these moments where they together reach a breaking point, we see a glimpse of Yuto. So yes, while I am a huge fan of Yuto, I feel that a lot of his potential as a character was never truly fulfilled, as there was a lot more to him to be explored as his own character, but unfortunately a lot of exploration of that character was cut short, and what we do see of him is a combination of him and Yuya. Nevertheless, I'm still a big fan of this character, and I know a lot of other people are too, but let me know if he was your favorite character in Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V, and I'll see you in the next one.